Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, it's our Wisdom of the Sages daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and bestie co-host Kaustubha Das. This is our 1 hour class a day. We knock this thing out every day for the most part for 1 hour. We commit to studying this book, the sacred literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam. This class is especially wonderful if you're a yoga teacher teaching and want to deepen your philosophy. And not only how to deepen your philosophy, but how to like sort of make it relevant to your life. So it's not just existing in your skull, but very practical application. Kaustubha, you want to share anything about the Bhagavatam while I get my verse up here?
Well, just not only is it informative, gives us so much important, valuable information, but just even the act of reading it and hearing it is a yoga practice in itself. It purifies the mind.
So I had a good question yesterday from an old student of mine who I really love. And she says, no, she's one of the others. So either people are listening to this on the live on Zoom. We have a Zoom group here, which is, you can join the Zoom group. You just got to write to Mara, our producer, at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Then you can join us live. We got about 76 people this morning live. And then there's live, like Guranga Avatar, Mara, Tom shows up live, where they're actually in the room live. And then, of course, we have the people we call the others. They listen, but we have no idea that they're listening or who they are. They're sort of silent in the background. It's especially prominent now that we have the podcast. And for me personally, I just know live because I see you guys on Zoom. So that's why I encourage Zoom people to take that photo of themselves down or their name and let me just see your real face because it helps for me to interact. Oh, look, Samantha Joe's here, Guranga. Good morning. And another thing I wanted to say is, so this lady, Lindsay, another Lindsay from Texas. How about that? She was a student in New York, and she says, I'm consuming the bejesus out of your podcast, Prabhu. Thank you for this. I am sharing with everyone I know. Possible topic: how to reconcile bhakti and Christianity and other religions. I struggle with, like, my truest, most joyful self is when I'm singing on my harmonium, but also feel like I'm cheating on Jesus. I'm so immersed in a church and Bible life here in Texas. It's beautiful, but I also subscribe to all bhakti principles. Can I be both? Sending love, blessings, and encouragement. Isn't that amazing?
That was great.
I find I become a better Christian studying the Srimad Bhagavatam. I kid you not. I don't think, and this is what I told my mother when I first came back from India, I think if Jesus was here, he'd high five me. Because what is, especially with the New Testament, love God with your heart, mind, and soul. That's the essence of Bhakti Yoga. Love God with your heart, mind, and soul.
Actually, he says with all your mind, right? Which is a very yogic idea that your entire mind has to be focused on it.
Right? Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your enemies. Come on, this is Bhakti Yoga. This is Bhakti Yoga. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to be inspired from another teacher teaching surrender to the divine. That's understandable. Just like in the same way, Kaustubha and me will walk through our life, or you guys can walk through your life, and you might get, this person turned me on to spirituality. Both these people, why can't there be many people? Just like like Christ is the Son of God. Sure, so Father has many sons. I don't think it's unchaste to take inspiration from different people if they're taking you to the same place. And I think that's the sort of feeling. And
So
I think a lot, it's not about cheating. It's about, like, let's exhaust ourselves with this material existence and connect with our spiritual existence. That's our truth. And bhakti will enhance it, because bhakti is by nature, basically written into the actual literature itself, is a type of inclusivity, an inclusiveness, as opposed to an exclusive type of church, or whatever you want to call it. Whereas my way or the highway, basically, you're in the club or you're out of the club. And truthfully, in practicing bhakti, we have to also practice this, because sometimes that ego slips in where it's just for our group, and everybody on a spiritual path outside of our club. You see this in India too. They'll break it down to our ashram, our sangha. It's silly. It's silly. There's one higher power, and there's a bunch of details on how to get to that higher power. And details can be useful, but details are still details. And we shouldn't forget the very biggest picture. And I often, in my own life, I have to step back and really say, okay, come on. Am I just getting caught up in some cult mentality? I have to actually step back. And there's a type of chastity you have to a tradition. But I think in the bigger strokes of, well, where are we going with this short life? What do I want to do? I don't think there's anything wrong there. Now, I would be wary of anybody within the bhakti, the Indian bhakti tradition, or Vedic bhakti tradition, or a particular sangha, or even Christianity, who is trying to create an us versus them. But it's not the way the great acharyas taught it, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's more inclusive. And in the biggest picture of people who are just like wrecking the world, wrecking their lives, ruining the lives for other people, I think it's important to develop a type of deep respect for people on a spiritual path, especially if they have this sort of wide gate, welcoming spirituality towards other traditions. That doesn't mean there won't be like some differences, but I find it's a minutia. What do you think, Kaustubha? Minutia.
You mentioned Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with, but I'm sure many are not familiar with. But he was this really important figure in the Bhakti movement who lived in the 19th century. And what a kind of a progressive thinker, very deep thinker, very deep spiritualist, very powerful spiritual figure. And he didn't coin the phrase, but he used the phrase sara, grahi, Vaishnava, right? So sara, grahi means, Vaishnava means a worshiper of Vishnu or Krishna, a Bhakti-yogi. And sara, grahi means one who takes the essence, right? Who can understand what is the essence of something, and they're more interested in the essential feature, the essential message, than the details. And so if someone has, and we're meant to become that, otherwise we're not really getting to the essence of our spiritual practice. When we get to the essence of our spiritual practice, we'll recognize that same essence in other spiritual practices. Mm. And so I believe what you're saying is that, and what I found, speaking for myself, is that when I read Srila Prabhupada, I was searching, a bit in spiritual circles as a teenager. And when I read Srila Prabhupada's books, I felt it helped really clarify the essence, so that when I looked at other spiritual traditions, I could see that same essence there. Mm. And I find that the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament, in particular, those are very easy to reconcile with my understanding of bhakti that I find in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. As you say, the disciples asked Jesus, what is the most important commandment? And Jesus responded as a sahagrahi, devotee, right? Mm. He didn't say, don't do this or don't do that. He said, he got to the essence. The essence is that all the rules and all the regulations, all of the practices and all of the rituals are meant to bring you to the essence, which is to love God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. And if you do that, naturally what grows out of that, or naturally develops through that, is that you love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that's the essence. Jesus presents that as the essence of Christianity. As Bhakti yogis, we understand that as the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavatam.
He actually presented it as the essence of the Old Testament as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That is the essence of the Old Testament. Sure. That you might miss it reading so much of the details in the Old Testament. He's like, I'm here to present to you the essence. Let's focus on that, which is exactly what the Bhagavatam is doing. The Bhagavatam is saying you can look at all the Vedas and get all confused. Let's focus on the essence.
Now, someone might argue and say, well, what this whole thing about reincarnation, you get a second chance.
Yeah.
What do you think heaven is? That heaven's reincarnation. What's getting propelled to the next realm, or even hell? What's getting dragged down to some hellish existence? The soul, the concept of the soul. It's just like, I find the Vedic teachings just fill in the blanks a little bit more.
Well,
go on.
Sure. Well, I was going to say then, of course, the question that a Christian might bring up is, well, what I've been taught my whole life is that reincarnation isn't true, that Jesus is the only way, et cetera. So then you have to deal with questions like that.
Well, that Jesus is the only way, which fundamentalists really drive home. I mean, Krishna says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. There's no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Buddha says the same thing in the Dhammapada. It's like, no one crosses the great ocean except through me. It's like all these books, or all these ancient books, are saying these things, these very direct things about, you want to cross this great ocean, you want to hit this next plateau, you come through me. So if they're all saying the same, now it's just my book versus your book. And the next question is, what are they all teaching? Are they all just against each other, or are there common threads in all these things? Mm-hmm. Because if you want to just pull out of context one sentence from each of these old books, it's my old book versus your old book. Come on. Come on.
And when it comes, now I'm going to share with you my faith, or how I interpret, say, Christianity and its teachings that might appear to conflict with my understanding from the Bhakti tradition. And that is that, the Bible that we read, I think it's an incredibly valuable teaching, particularly the New Testament. And but I also understand that it's come down a certain pipe, right? That it's come through the Vatican. That there was a Council of Nicaea that took place, I believe,
Council of Nicaea.
Council of Nicaea.
I know. I've heard of the Council of Nicaea. That's where they came up with what's actually in the Bible. Actually,
that's where they put together. What is the Bible? It's the recollections of several. The New Testament. It's a recollection of several different authors. You got the Gospels. Mm. Each one a disciple of Jesus, sharing their own experience with Jesus.
And what letters of Saul, which Saul, who is Paul, has never met Christ.
Yeah, and then it's a collection of letters so a certain number of testimonies and letters were put together in a book. Valuable letters with great teachings in them and valuable testimonies. But they were chosen and they were edited and they were kind of built into, they were kind of created. Now, the men that put that book together, that collected those letters and edited those letters and translated those letters, do I believe that they were entirely unmotivated by any kind of political concern, or institutional concern? I have my doubts about that. And so I feel that, that it's certainly possible that it was presented in such a way to either remove or hide ideas about reincarnation and so on.
That's why I like how the Bhagavad Gita explains reincarnation, because first of all, it has this whole separate idea that the soul and the body are different, and it's the soul that is witnessing and the body is ever changing. Yeah. And therefore it's not like you're going to have, like when grandma dies, she's not going to be in heaven with this old grandma body. And if a little child dies, they're not going to be in heaven with the body that's a white, black, Asian, corpse, so to speak.
Right.
And a dog dies, they're not going to go to the dog heaven kennel in the sky, dogs with wings flapping around barking. The idea is that the soul is separate than the body. It's even got nothing to do necessarily with the shape or species of this body. The spirit is something completely different. And so we are in a process where we accept the Vedic picture is we accept that there's heavens and hells, but they too aren't eternal places. But there is a place beyond heaven and hell, and that's called the spiritual realm, where the body is non-different than the self. And so I think it just shines. I don't think it disagrees. I think it just shines a little bit more light, gives a little bit more details in the process of how to get to love. And then it gives like this very interesting thing, this nuanced concept of love. Because, in a Judeo-Christian tradition where you're worshiping God as the, how do you describe God? If I just Google it, it'd probably be omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, all over. That is like, if you see a person who's just like, if someone walks in the room and their brain is so smart, they're reading your mind, you're sort of impressed. Then all of a sudden that same person picks you up and lifts you over their head. You're impressed. You know what I mean? And then that person is standing behind you and in front of you at the same time. You're like, what the hell? That's a pretty impressive person. I want to okay, I don't know who you are, but you're pretty powerful. That's pretty powerful. It's something different in this weird nuanced thing. The love of a child. How do you understand, I love God like a mother loves a child? It's sort of like a weird, peculiar, intimate form of love. Because with powerful people, you love them, but with a type of deep respect. But with a love of a child, if a mother or father can relate to this, you love with a type of intimacy. Or with a lover, you love with a type of deep romance. So this is a thing about Krishna Bhakti, how it's different. It goes into this nuanced love and how to actually throw away the concept of God in awe and reverence. Matter of fact, how do you love the divine who is all powerful? You actually have to forget that your object of worship is all powerful. And you have to be covered by a type of spiritual illusion where you say, my little boy, my little baby, my darling lover. And that's in Bhakti, that's called Yoga Maya, or this type of spiritual illusion. It's interesting. We sort of went off the.
Yeah, necessarily. I was going to share that. I know that amongst our listeners, there are Christians and even pastors and so on that derive
listening to us.
Yeah. I know of at least one who's,
we should start a subgroup of pastors listening to the show.
And they may even keep it a little bit on the DL, but they get inspiration here and they share it amongst their congregation. I think that's great,
That is cool. Anyway, I just went to Quora.com, our source for all online knowledge, and it says Christ and Krishna, no difference.
There you go.
There it goes. It says on Quora.
Okay.
Anyway, I hope that helped.
We can discuss it more in the future, I think, but as some have shared here on our board, Rachel mentioned that studying Bhakti has 100% softened her heart up to Jesus and Christianity. And I felt like it filled in the gaps for me, helped clarify and get me beyond a lot of the fundamentalist teachings that come out of Christianity that I don't feel actually help people get to the essence of it.
And I think there's fundamentalism in every spiritual path.
Sure.
And that's why I just, anyway, if you saw what I subscribe to on Instagram, you'd be like, funny what I follow, but I just follow a bunch of peculiar things.
Well, we know about your car and truck thing or something like that, right?
Well, whatever.
Well, what are you talking about?
Let's not pick me apart here.
You opened the door. Let's hear it. What is it?
I follow a bunch of Christians and Muslims as well.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what I watch on Netflix? Did I share that before?
Well, but don't get me into this. I had a spiritual fall down last night.
Uh-oh. I wasn't even getting to you. I was sharing what I watched, so you don't have to go there.
Okay.
Although you certainly have raised our interest.
I got Silas looking at me in Mayapur with this shameful look.
He's saying, "Did you watch The Irishman again? Is that it?"
Okay, go on.
there's a lot of biblical stuff that it's a. I don't want to say this in any kind of disrespectful way, but some of it's a little corny, but actually it's like got a lot of great essential information in it, So like I'd like to watch some of that stuff sometimes.
Biblical movies?
Yeah, biblical movies on Netflix.
Like what?
There's the 4 Gospels. There's the kind of like the history of the disciples of Jesus and stuff like that.
That sounds like a real fun night out.
It is.
Date night. Come on, honey, we're gonna watch the 4. We're partying at the Kaustubha Das house tonight.
Well, I don't consider Netflix to be a party.
Yeah.
Or a date. But in any
date
case.
Well, you got to have kids. That becomes Netflix is a date night.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Once you have kids, Netflix is like a big night out.
All right.
Can I tell you about my fall down last night?
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
It was like, it's the same thing. It's like I want some time with my wife. We're just working and like in kid culture. And so we're like, let's break away from the whole posture and we had like 3 people sleeping over last night. And so let the kids do their thing. We're going to watch Netflix. She's like, you pick. So I picked some drama. I just wanted to drama because I usually just go right to comedy as usual. And for some
what was it?
It was called like Bird Box.
Bird Box. Does it have anything to do with
I never watched scary movies. It was a scary thriller. And it was I could tell in the first 10 minutes it was dumb. Anyway, it's a story about this like energy that sort of like infects people's eyes and then they want to commit suicide. And and there's like massive pandemic of people just committing suicide if they look at this energy. And you have to stay blindfolded. The whole thing was little. Maybe
the energy is Netflix itself.
I tell you.
We're killing our spiritual life.
Spiritual suicide. Anyway, the real takeaway I got of it was like how a pandemic can wreck it. I try to look at this with a spiritual lens. I was like, how a pandemic can just like everything that is perpendicular and parallel in life. Everything can just turn around in a moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everything. I mean, we were saying this the other day, Kaustubha, how like we hear and you read about refugees in this country, and all of a sudden a political upheaval is happening, and all these people are fleeing for their life. It's happening right now in Myanmar and in Syria, and all of a sudden, what as normal, it's sort of like grab all your shit. We're getting the hell out of here. Grab your daughter, grab your son, put the baby in the backpack. If you've got gold, grab gold. If you've got a canned food, grab that. And we are freaking heading in the forest, running away and protect all that stuff that seems so distant from us right now. We are just like, it's a moment away. And that was a spiritual takeaway. A movie like,
okay,
wow, that's right. We're just like sort of surviving. I mean, this Bhagavatam is training us to see even movies like Bird Box with a spiritual lens. But anyway.
Okay, I was just ready for you to turn it into a new variety of podcast again, survivalist podcast with Raghunath.
Well, that's coming.
That's okay.
Grab a thing of peanut butter and spring water.
We're onto the woods. All right, Bhagavatam.
Okay. All right, let's start with our invocation to the Bhagavatam.
Let us.
Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the ultimate means of our conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta priyeshvabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati nahishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become vanquished, and pure devotional service.
Unto the transcendent Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will become established as an irrevocable fact.
Thank you. Om Jnana Timurandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Minatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yes. Can't buy that. Can't buy those 2 hours back watching that movie. It was nice to get away. It was nice to get away. It was just sort of like, that's what happens when you don't plan it. You just sort of like,
Bird
okay.
box happens.
Yeah, bird box happens. Okay.
Maybe a little quick little recap.
Yeah.
Super quick.
Yeah. Please give us a little cliff notes here.
That this chapter is about Vyasadeva being instructed by Narada that you've composed a lot of great literature, but it's got people a little confused. And what I'm asking you to do is to focus more directly on bhakti and on glorifying Krishna himself, because people will get the full purification and find their full satisfaction of the heart and full spiritual completion through that. Now what he's doing is he's giving his own little story, right? Because that's the way we talk a lot. Like, hey, I suggest you do this. You know why? Because let me tell you how it affected me. So Narada's saying, you know, you need to share more directly about Krishna. Let me tell you about the story of my previous life. When I was I was an ordinary boy. I was a nice boy, but I wasn't very deeply spiritually advanced or anything. But then I heard about Krishna's glories from these great souls. I served them. I approached them with the right attitude. And then from that platform, when I heard from them, it transformed my life. And so please present these teachings in such a way so that other people can have that same experience, because they're reading all the Vedas and all the Upanishads, et cetera, and they're not necessarily getting to that. You have to help them get more directly to that. So now we're hearing this story.
Incredible liberated soul that we hear about in the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada, and he's about to give his backstory. Like, how do you become a Narada? How do you become one? And he says he ate the remnants of the food of the great sages.
Number one. Right. Number two.
Right. Okay. You want to get into this because Alex just asked the question. Okay. What is the third thing? We said there's three powerful things in bhakti. One is you eat the remnants of the food of the great souls. The prasad, the mahaprasad.
Yeah.
The second one is you touch the dust feet. The dust of the feet of the great souls. And that's why you see people, you go to Vrindavan, they roll around in the dust. They touch the feet of the great souls. The children touch the feet of the parents.
Yeah.
The third one is the most esoteric and the most, almost for an American, truthfully, it's the most bizarre thing ever.
You know what, though? It's interesting. I think it's there in the Bible as well. Now that since we're talking about the Bible today.
Well, I'll start with those who just came to India with us. When you go to the temple, and you hear Raghunath like sort of like rush you in the door. Okay, you see that guy over there? There's a line behind that guy over on the side, and he's handing out some like flavored water that you put in your right hand. You sip it in. It's called charanamrita, or the charana, the lotus, the nectar from the lotus feet. So the idea is with great personalities, when they come, you sit them down and you wash their feet. Why? Because they've been traveling. And the water of the feet of the great souls, you put that on your mouth. They say that is so powerful. That's why the deities every day, and this is another like peculiar thing to swallow for civilians, is you every day they bathe. The big deities have little deities in front of them, and every day they bathe those deities. And the water from that is called the charanamrita, and the drinking of that water has a powerful spiritual effect.
I mean, in real life, if you did something, you might just sprinkle it on your head. Right?
Yeah.
And with the deities, they bathe them with yogurt and with honey and with rose water, and then they get a nice blend, and you drink that.
And you drink it. It tastes sort of good. And but the idea is the water of the feet is also considered incredibly sacred. Okay. Oh, here
got something from Alice here. Yeah.
Alice from Italy says, Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. So that was the guru doing to the disciples, occurred in the upper room during the Last Supper and has significance in three ways. For Jesus, it was the display of his humility and his servanthood. For the disciples, the washing of the feet was in direct contrast to the heart attitudes at that time. And for us, washing feet is symbolic of our role in the body of Christ. I don't know where Alice got that from, but she's Italian and just might be
sounds authoritative to me.
If you want to know about Jesus, you ask an Italian. Okay.
All right. So shall we continue now? That was the
Yes.
cliffhanger from yesterday.
Good. And Aaron Weintraub says, I never knew what that was about at the temple.
I mean, there's more.
That's the thing about these. You go to these temples, there's so many rituals. It's like, what am I even doing? I don't know. Just do it. This is, yeah. Okay.
There's more
So we're
foot bathing in the Bible as well.
There's more foot bathing in the
Yeah.
Bible?
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Robes, foot bathing,
Yeah.
shaven heads,
Drying the feet with the hair was even done there and everything like that, you know.
drying the feet with the hair. We haven't tried that one in the temples yet.
No. Okay.
Okay. Oh, great sage. As soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention, this is what we last left off on.
Is it? What text are you on?
We're on 28 now, I think.
28.
Okay.
Yes, I believe we are, which is thus during the 2 seasons.
Okay, let me start with 27.
Okay.
Oh, great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I accepted the gross and subtle coverings. For both the Lord and I are transcendental. This is what we do. I accept my gross covering as me. That's called illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, we're just guys. Guys, have you ever heard guys say things like that? Hey, we're just humans. Well, if you call yourself a human, you're a human. Or sometimes guys say, hey, we're just animals, man. After all, we're just animals. People talk like that. Guess what? You become what you call yourself. And you got to be careful what you label yourself because you become like that. Therefore, in our yoga paradigm, our spiritual paradigm, we call ourselves, I am a spirit soul. I am a spirit soul. And that gives me a type of accountability to act like a spirit soul. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I think it's important. I think it's real important. And I also think that in this verse, there's 2 things that are being mentioned.
Okay.
It's, as you're focusing on, it mentions that he got a realization that he saw past his ignorance. And you know, I can say for myself, and I think we could all say that to one degree or another, we are living in a state of ignorance, that we are identifying with our body. Even if we understand it, like our listeners here are mostly going to say, intellectually, I get it, I'm not my body. But the depth of the illusion is so strong that we have a hard time.
Dealing with all my pain I have, be it a physical pain, a mental pain, a cat
or
pop word is my story.
Yeah,
My story is not me.
I was going to say,
how about my shadow? My shadow is not me.
Okay. I was going to say that we also, even though we may intellectually understand, for instance, I'm not my body, we may still find ourselves trapped in behavior that acts as if we did believe that we were a body and that happiness comes through satisfying the senses of the body and lacking the insight of our true spiritual glory, you could say, right? So that, but Nard is describing how he broke through that. How did he break through that? He got the blessings of these great souls. He approached them with the right attitude and he heard from them. And as he heard from them, then he said, my attention to hear of the Lord was unflinching. His taste for hearing became strengthened and strengthened. And I was just, as you read that, I was thinking, you know, I know Srila Prabhupada mentions in his commentaries that the test in spirituality, right, here's the test. Am I advancing spiritually? Here's the test. Is my eagerness to hear the glories of the Lord, to hear the spiritual teachings, is it increasing? If that is increasing, then I know I'm advancing spiritually. If I'm losing interest in the other things, in the bird boxes out there, and if my interest is increasing in hearing the Lord's glory, and hearing Bhagavatam, and hearing Ramayana, and hearing Mahabharata, if that's and hearing New Testament for that, but if that's increasing, then I know that I'm becoming more well situated spiritually. To test.
Damodar Priya writes, what is the holy water in church?
Are we going back?
I never knew. I don't know what it is. And then Suryaji says, well, you know, you dip your middle index finger in and you
You do a
the
little
sign of the
cross.
cross. I still don't know what it is.
It's holy water.
I know, but what makes it holy?
I forget.
Can you drink it?
Let's get
move
Alice back on
If
that
Alice, get on this, please.
one. Alice, we need your help.
Okay, I'm moving on here.
But
Thus,
commentary on this one, Raghu. It's please read some of the commentary for us.
okay, hold on a second. I already changed pages.
Oh no, actually, I want to hear the 28th commentary.
Okay, great. That's where I was. Thus, during the two seasons, the rainy season and autumn, I had the opportunity to hear from these great souls, these great souled sages, constantly chant the unadulterated glories of Lord Hari. As the flow of my devotional service began, the coverings of the modes of passion and ignorance vanquished. So that's the main costume I'm wearing, is this energy of ignorance and passion.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance means a type of lethargy, a type of addicted to things. It doesn't have to be like hardcore addictions, but even subtle things. A type of internal laziness, a darkness, and passion, a type of like hope from material ambition. These are the main coverings. And as Kali Yuga progresses, Rajas and Tamas actually progress. And so just by hearing these great souls, and I think it's safe to say that if you hear a person that's very, very attached to telling Krishna's pastimes, especially when you go on pilgrimage, and you just get wrapped in these pastimes and these stories, it does something to your heart. Where almost like it attracts your mind. And what's happening is it's attracting your mind right out of Tamas and Rajas. And so he was just sitting there as a kid, just overhearing their conversation. And Radhanath Swami talks about the same thing when he's traveling through the Himalayas, and he's not even speaking Hindi, but they're having all these stories of Ram Leela going on.
Yeah.
And he's hearing it, and he's sort of getting attracted to it, but he doesn't even know what they're saying. Okay, you want me to read the purport?
Yeah, it's so good.
Transcendental loving service to the Supreme is the natural inclination of every living being.
Right.
The instinct is dormant in everyone, but due to the association of material nature, the modes of passion and ignorance cover this from time immemorial. It's so funny because until I started reading the Bhagavatam, I never ever used the word immemorial.
Mm-hmm.
But from time immemorial means forever. Forever, there is some covering of the soul.
Forever, or like back before memory goes?
So immemorial, I guess that's what it means, before memory. If by the grace of the Lord and the great soul devotees of the Lord, a living being becomes fortunate enough to associate with unadulterated devotees. So unadulterated means clean at heart, not tinged with anything. Like unadulterated water has nothing else in it. It has, it's just pure water. Unadulterated devotees of the Lord, and gets a chance to hear the unadulterated glories of the Lord. Certainly the flow of bhakti takes place like the flow of a river.
Okay, so he's saying that within our heart we have this already there, but it's just not flowing. But if you can hear the right message from the right people, it just starts to flow.
And that's why sometimes people, according to our layers of passion and ignorance, when we hear truth, something resonates with us. It's like, wow, that makes sense. And truth is for everybody. It's not just like, well, you're a white male, you can't understand truth. Everybody, whoever hears truth, it's going to land for them in a way, and it's going to resonate with them. Because ultimately, I'm not a white male. I'm a spirit soul. And when you speak of truth in a very deep way, it's going to attract people's mind. Now, of course, we might be so wrapped up in our addictions to the material world of Rajas and Tamas. Someone could be speaking truth, and we just can't hear it. I'm sure there's times in our life we could remember where someone was giving us good advice, and we're like, not interested.
He's not good for you.
Talk to the hand, not interested. But this is reality. And then we'll get an opening. There'll be a little glimpse where someone's speaking truth, or sometimes, someone someone will speak to us, a parent, a spouse will speak some truthful thing to us, but I can't hear it from my spouse, can't hear it from my mom, can't hear it, but some other random person walks into our life, and then we hear it from them, right? My wife is smiling. I told you this, and then I heard it from someone else, and I'll say, man, you should hear what I heard. I've been telling you that for years. When we hear it from another source sometimes, then we give it an opening. We give it an opening, and then it resonates with us. So that is the thing about truth. The soul, truth is the food of the soul. That's what the soul is actually hungry for. And what is truth? It is sort of direction. It's a map of how to escape the dead ends, right? Without that map, I could just take a right, and I realize this is going nowhere. Take a left, that's going nowhere. There it is. You got to take a little quick right, quick left like that. So this is what we're doing in Bhakti. We listen to these truths. We get attracted to it, especially if it's coming from a person with this stellar type of character. And that's why a big thing and it's hard to do because we're all grown up with these addictive Kali Yuga lifestyle. We're all a bunch of dented cans. We joke about this. There used to be a book in the 70s called "I'm Okay, You're Okay." We have a better. The new thing is just trying to like, I'm okay, you're okay. For all these people who suffer from the self-deprecation, we like to say, I'm not okay, and you're not okay, and that's okay. It's like recognizing our dented canness, and we are a little broken. We're broken toys. You know, we're that toy aisle where the doll's missing an arm. That's okay. We've all had some type of perhaps a crazy past, but within that, we can sort of catch truth. And that truth hooks us and sort of drags us out of an old incarnation of ourself. And then we become sort of on this path by hearing on a regular basis, which is what we're trying to establish here. We sort of get lured out of that incarnation and into our real. And when I say about the incarnation is the covering of Rajas and Tamas, but there is a real pure self. When I get free, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, which is being mentioned here in this commentary, right?
Yeah. We hear from the unadulterated.
That's right. Yeah. But also that it's dormant in everyone. So just like what you're saying, I'm not okay. I've got all kind of issues. I'm bound by illusion in so many ways. You're not okay. You're the same. But we're okay because we know that within every living being, that this inclination to serve the Lord is there, and that it's dormant in everyone. And we just need to hear the right message. Like you're saying, truth is the food. We need to eat that food, and our okay nature will come out. And
it's the superfood.
It's the superfood. Okay.
It's the superfood. I thought the superfood was acai.
Don't even know what that is.
It's a berry. It's a Brazilian berry. Come on.
All right.
Please. By the way, it's not a win. It's not a win for me, a home run, to convert Lindsay out of her Christian tradition to a Eastern tradition. That's not a home run. A home run in a spiritual path is you align person to wherever their heart is calling them. It's not to get them to join a particular church. Okay, look, you got a costume on? Wear our costume. We got a cooler costume than you. You got a religious haircut? You got religious beads? Try ours. Why is that a win? That's like another costume change. We want our person to change their heart, to change the way they see the world, change the way they relate to other people, to treat other people. That is like the gold standard. That's the barometer for me advancing in spiritual life. Not an Indian shirt. Big deal. Oh, there's beads. You got these beads versus those beads. Big deal. We need a much broader understanding of spiritual life. And we really have to sometimes zoom out of cult thought, and understand, not saying we don't appreciate what we have, but open the gate a little wider. Kaustubha?
Let it flow.
Let it flow. Okay. Alice, wait a second. Alice writes in here. Holy water. Alice. Holy water is water that has been blessed by a member of the clergy or a religious figure. the use for cleansing prior to baptism and spiritual cleansing is common in several religions, from Christianity to Sikhism.
Well, that's also, I think in our own tradition where we do Achman, now it's another thing to talk about here, right? But some of you will be familiar with it, some of you won't. But before you do a ritual, you do this Achman, where you put some water in your palm of your hand, and then you chant a mantra into the water.
Well, that's a whole nother interesting thing, because there's that new science of writing things on the bottle of water, like writing love. Who's the doctor who says that?
Where is it? Where did you get this?
Dr. Dr. Emoto from Japan. You write love on the bottle, and it actually transforms. It's true.
Who is this, Dr. Emoto?
It's all true.
It's all real.
That's why I secretly sneak in and write hate.
No, bro.
Just kidding. Imagine that, sneaking in, writing on their water cooler, hate. I don't ever do that.
But with Achman,
worship Raghunath, I write on all the bottles.
But yeah, the idea is you chant the mantra into the water, and then you sip the water, and in this way you infuse the body with the power of the mantra.
You infuse the water. They say that the writing of the name or the speaking of the mantra changes the chemical structure of the water. Then you sip that mantra. It's very interesting.
Okay. So anyway, I'd imagine that the holy water is sanctified in a similar way through prayer, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what Alice says. Okay. She is the... Okay.
But you want to continue this commentary? Because it's short, but it's really nice.
Sure.
As the river flows.
You read, because I'm lost.
As the river flows on. So it mentioned that there's flow. Certainly the flow of devotional service takes place like the flow of a river. It's dormant in the heart. You hear from the right people, it starts to flow. As the river flows on till she reaches the sea. Similarly, pure devotional service, bhakti, flows by the association of pure devotees till it reaches the ultimate goal, namely transcendental love of God. Such a flow of devotional service cannot stop. On the contrary, it increases more and more without limitation. The flow of devotional service of bhakti is so potent that any onlooker also becomes liberated from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance. These two qualities of nature are thus removed, and the living being is liberated, being situated in his original position.
That's, you know what? It's almost like, what are we before we are conditioned? This is the story about the naked man in the box. I can't tell it now, but
man. Well,
my story.
Okay, why don't we do Naked Man in the Box tomorrow, because I want to hear that story again.
All right. The idea is that there is an original me before I was programmed by the material world, and everybody has a concept of we're being programmed. We are not adult. We are not in our pure form. I am told what to wear. I am told, a haircut to have. I am told that beards are cool. You need a beard. You need a mustache. You need to wax your mustache. I am told these things. Culture is telling me. All the bearded guys are looking at me. I'd have one too. We're told by culture what is cool, what is not cool, what cars to drive, what cars not to drive. What is acceptable, how baggy our pants should be, or should they not be baggy. And culture changes that. Every decade it changes that. And so what are we before the programming? That's the question.
Mm.
And what is the actual mirror that we should be looking in, mirror of the soul? The Vedas give, what is the reflection of what you actually are? Is it that I'm a male, an Italian male, a short Italian male, a New Yorker, a sports guy or a non-sports guy, an intellectual, a nerd? What is my original persona? Is there one?
Yeah.
Right?
And in Bhakti, we believe that one, it's purely spiritual, free from any touch from the gunas, but also it's individual, it's unique. Right?
It's very unique.
We reach our own person.
I think probably with psychiatry, it's the study of people who have their thinking is so askew that it's causing them difficulty to function in the world. So a good psychiatrist would bring a person back to normalcy. The question is, what is the original normal?
That's what Bhakti's trying to do. Get back to the original normal.
Okay. We got a real active chat board today.
Well, I think Samantha Joe shared the Dr. Emoto water experiments.
There we go.
Take a look at that.
That's all real. That's all real. Okay. Do I have time for one more?
One more verse.
I was very much attached to those sages, right? That's what happens when you hang out with saintly people. Truthfully, it happens that when you hang out with anybody, you get attached to anybody. But I was very much attached to those sages, and I was gentle in behavior, and all my sins or all my bad karma was eradicated in that service. In my heart, I had strong faith in them, and I'd subjugated the senses. I was strictly following them with body and mind.
Let's read this verse again tomorrow, because there's so much there that we should do. We should do this verse, and we should do Naked Man in the Box.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, I got some good news for you.
Yeah. Share the good news, brother.
Got good news for you. The good news is that's the end of the show.
Oh, okay. The bad news is you're still not queuing up the music on time.
No, I'm not. And I'm realizing that Silas is at the beach right now with Alexandra Moga. That's what's going on right now. Anyway, thanks for everybody who's tuning in. We are live on Zoom. If you want to join us live, you just have to email us if you have any questions, like Lindsay asked in today. You can just email us at yoga of this. What's our podcast?
Wisdom of the
Stages 108 at gmail.com. Wisdom of the Sages at gmail.com. And if you want to join us on Zoom, if you're listening on the podcast, you can. Podcast people, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And Zoom people, thanks for everybody today. I really appreciate, and I really appreciate all the back and forth and insight everyone's giving. Anyone who joined late, here we go. Like Akiko and Zeb and Nicole McCarthy. Okay, we can clap now, everybody. Come on. I think it's important to clap and sing in the morning. That's just my personal. It's even more important to clap on beat. Thanks for all the divine couples joining us, all the pets joining us, all the kids joining us, all the people sort of waking up their whole household joining us.
Joggers. Looking forward to Katie Bell's notes.
Oh, yeah, and we're looking for Katie Bell's notes. Thanks, Katie Bell. Those are really appreciated. She's sending out notes. By the way, if you're not on the Telegram list, I don't even know how to get on that. You just
Right to Wisdom of the Sages 108.
Right to Wisdom of the Sages 108. Because there is an ongoing Telegram discussion all day long. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Bye, Kaustubha. Thank you, Kaustubha.
Thank you, Raghu. Thank you, everybody. Love you all, to the Zoomers and all the other listeners.
The saddest part of the day. Goodbye. Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe.